wish for that. So for me, it all started with a whiteboard and just trying to jot out what might be some ideas as to how we could go about that, and even thinking beyond the people in this room. So knowing that within the school we've also got podiatry and oral health, that we could potentially have a scenario that they tap into at a later stage, but start off with saying conceptually to see how it could be done. So for me, it was a matter of trying to work out where my resources were, and knew a few people at Harbour Hockey, and with the kids playing there, thought that they would be free actors if we needed them to be able to create the scenario itself. And it might start off with the likes of the startup of the game, and there's a field there that doesn't have any sponsorship around it, so we could certainly use that. But then the idea is that someone is hit in the face from that.
Have you got a volunteer for that person?
Yeah.
We hope.
Funny enough, my son actually got knocked in the face by a ball just on Tuesday.
Oh, we won't have to put a bruise on.
Yeah, so he's got a big fat lip at the moment.
Oh.
So then it could be a matter of, like what you guys were saying, to be able to scan the scene as to who's there and what sort of resources are available and who are you going to make contact with.
A button, call paramedics.
Yeah. But I thought, well, if it was a scenario that there happened to be a physio who was with this rec team alongside, then they could do that initial screening from there. And so for me, I've just built in what sort of things I'd want physios to go through. That they need to think about the likes of the SCAT, that they need to do some concussion check, that there's some other things that they need to maybe link into from the likes of the Google form, that gets them to think about, do you guys use the Canadian C-spine for initial assessment that then goes on to, do you need to get someone off to radiology?
We teach it.
You teach it? Yeah.
But we don't use it. We don't regularly use it in an ambulance.
We've got a different set of criteria at the moment for ruling in, ruling out.
And so many.
But I think that's part of the interesting thing about this project is identifying the differences between protocols between these different disciplines as well.
But I guess the problem is you've got the mighty St. John. And then you've got what the rest of the world does,
right?
If that makes sense.
We've got the same mistake.
And so, like, this is really good, but you can kind of see people will go, well, my personal opinion is this fits, like using that C-spine score and all that sort of stuff, because that's what we teach. But it's not used in New Zealand,
right?
In the ambulance service.
And I don't think it's used in England either, from my
Yeah,
experience.
but this project could possibly end up
Yeah.
as a resource for them to move that way, or to at least explore that, possibly, hopefully.
I think at least it gives a different perspective.
I was about to say, that's what's cool.
As to what you would do, and then it offers a form of discussion, because you may have ruled in or ruled out and done your C-spine assessment, and then the ambulance crew is going to come over and do a completely different assessment and may come up with a different result. So it offers that
And put a collar on someone you decided not to.
and so on. So and again, you go into the nurse, they might say, well, actually, we're going to do our own assessment. So that makes it more interesting.
And the discussion about duplication, etc. as well.
So there's sort of two elements I sort of see to the project. One is exploring those ideas around handover and protocols and the differences between the disciplines. But the other one is just giving students the ability to see what the different disciplines actually do in a real context.
Actually, I reckon we should add in triage scoring, because at St. John's triage scoring is different to the Australasian one that we use most of the time. Which is just a thought as well, because they might get different category when they come to us. The top two are the same, but there's a few more below that, just as all.
Anyway, so walk us through.
So it should get to a point where no, the paramedic needs to be called in, and there needs to be some form of, this is what the physio's done, and it's filtered into, now what does the paramedic need to know to be able to carry on from there.
So how are we making sure that, so I totally agree, paramedic needs to come. Do you make it that a family member's already called the ambulance? Because you could get, theoretically, just like you could get a paramedic who says, nah, this patient doesn't need to go to hospital. You could get a PT who goes, nah, we're good, don't need to call an ambulance. So you can kind of backload it and say, well, family members already called an ambulance, and so ambulance is already on the way. So you don't give them the option of whether an ambulance is going to come or not. I'm just wondering.
So that would be
Yeah,
part
and the
of
other-
the scene or the video. So
Yeah,
as soon
yeah.
as they get hit, someone is on the phone already.
The other thing I was thinking was, what if the dispatcher kind of decided that they were a callback?
Oh yeah, but I
Rather
mean,
than
you
a-
don't.
Yeah.
That would. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so
But,
maybe if we
but
could
don't
just take
complicate it
that
out.
Yeah.
Just say
Well,
parents called an ambulance. There's an ambulance on the way.
The scenario that I've started up with and moved forward from what you've seen there is
Yeah.
that they're at an away tournament, the
Yeah.
parents are there, and we could actually have it that parents have seen it and they've called 111.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then there's all this other stuff that's happening on the field.
Just fine, because all you need to say is, hey, ambulance has been called and they're on their way. Okay, cool. So the PT can go do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
And they're in the meantime
Cool.
collecting this information. I mean, I've done it in CP because that's what I had resource to at the time. But as you say, it's very static as to the information that they have. And I've made it so that they're directed 1, 2, 3, 4, so that when they then go back to the Google form, which I've had as a quiz, that this information here is enough for them to fill out the likes of the Glasgow coma. And then there's another bit of information that gets them to fill out the medic.
Yeah.
You know, so that should pull them through. They answer that question and then they can move to the next part of the scenario.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to have it in 2 different versions, a CPP
Oh, yeah.
and a 1VR version, do a bit of a comparison. You know?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Just looking at what else is.
See, because that would be also interesting for the paramedicine side of things. There would be some students who would put a collar on.
Yeah.
And there'd be some that wouldn't, because as current procedures, I wouldn't put a collar on that.
Right.
And I could justify it quite comfortably, as could
Yeah, but that's part of the
half the staff.
yeah.
And then I believe that half the staff would comfortably say we need to put a collar on.
Yeah.
But there's no indication there for me currently
Yeah.
that patient needs a collar.
But that's part of the
They
authenticity
can
of
walk to
it.
the ambulance.
Is that critical reasoning and
Yeah.
And that's the experience
you
you
know,
bring.
explaining why
Yeah.
you've chosen to do stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what you want from your students.
Absolutely.
No, I agree.
And I'd be adding in some other things, so there'd be along the lines of a rolled ankle. So I add that in because then we can maybe bring in podiatry later on, but then that means that no, they cannot walk.
Yeah,
No,
which
you
is fine.
cannot do the full set.
Which is
So
cool.
there's some gaps here, so what does that mean?
Yeah.
And then I'll just flick through. So as far as being in the ambulance, it might be that you guys come up with that there's some sort of event there, whether there's a seizure or an arrest or something that means that they need to be stabilised. So there's added information by the time that they then get to the emergency department. And then there's the handover of all the stuff that happened on the scene to then paramedicine, to then what you guys hand over to the nursing staff. And then from there, the nurse would do their assessment and then think about, well, what's the end result here? Are they going on the ward or is there referral on to other services?
Do they need an X-ray? Do they need a...
Yeah.
Sorry,
CT.
this is a great idea. I really like the fact that each of the disciplines should be writing out their respective report,
Yeah.
because that gives a point of reflection as well as analysis. You know, and in some instances, justification of their actions or not.
I agree.
And so for this reason, this is a really weak spot that we have within our degree program, is getting the students to actually to work their way through the documentation. Because I don't, do you cover documentation in any depth?
Me?
Yeah. You do.
But that's
Okay.
part of the element that Todd's
Yeah,
added in
but-
there, is that documentation via a Google form link.
It could be that there's a referral sheet or a reflection sheet that they fill in, and I guess
can
you can then have a look at it and
export
export it,
to their portfolio.
or otherwise it keeps it to themselves.
So the other thing that here's where, so we did some stuff at a conference where we did a case study, and we showed handovers with GPs and GPs, and then with helicopter staff. And what you need to throw in here in the physio is have someone say, and it doesn't matter what it is, but it has to be relevant to oral health or podiatry or whatever. I'm allergic to Bivocaine, or whatever, because Bivocaine is a drug that oral health use. And again, they would be the ones that would think, but it's always interesting to see if that allergy is actually handed forward. And so the case study that we talked about at this conference with the doctors was, there was a anaesthetic drug that wasn't handed over by ambulance staff that they were allergic to. Then there was an issue en route. They then knocked the patient out at hospital, and they had an anaphylactic reaction under anaesthesia. So that again, it was just because the handover was so poor on all cases, like on all. So you kind of add something. I mean, I don't know PT. You could say they've got a. I mean, Todd, I don't know if this is the case. I'm making it up in my head. Are there people who have anaphylactic reactions? I know they have rashes, but anaphylactic reactions to the tape that you guys use as physios?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the questions that could be asked, or even the likes of the different types of oils they might use for massage.
Cool. Oral health would be easy, and I mean, I don't know what podiatry use, but podiatry I suspect use tape as well. So then you can kind of play something in there.
Yeah, I think part of the key part of the key with getting this off the ground to start with is just making sure it's not so complex that it never happens. So let's keep it relatively simple to start with, and then we can identify the areas that it can be enhanced and broadened out to.
But I like the idea of having something that could potentially get missed.
Yep.
And that might be important at stage 3 or 4. But
it's that whole Chinese whispers thing, which happens in every facet.
And that really identifies the critical importance of the handover
Absolutely.
process. Yeah.
And I think also something lagging behind is how it's done. It's totally verbal and assuming that the other person hears it, remembers it, and then passes it on.
That's the thing. Sometimes it's not actually about what I've said. It's whether you've heard what I've said. So it's not,
and it's whether
it's whether, you get so task focused into what you're doing that I don't listen to the physio.
It's very easy to happen because you inherit a patient who's already going through something.
Yeah.
But then that's also how this project can give people the tools to be able to do that. So if it's a Google form that they have on their device, then it's getting them to actually do that.
And my informed practice as well is, why can't they have a device that records the conversation throughout the handover, starting with whoever I started and ending up with,
So it's really quite interesting. So the project is enhancing, education scenarios, but in some ways it's actually leading to modified practice, enhanced practice as well. So
has the potential.
So part of me is also thinking about trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, where I'm about to teach concussion for the 3rd years. So it might be that rather than doing the VR side of it, this is what I might be getting them to go through, is that they do have the scenario, they need to think about what's their priority of care, and it's set up as a quiz, so that when they get it correct, I can give them some more information and maybe some resources as far as getting summaries of things. So there's a summary of what you might consider for that point in time. Then it goes on to, well, if there's some other information about the subject of whether I add in the SNAP there. Then they've got to go through ankle assessment, and again we can go to what they get for if it's correct or not, and then priorities as such, or do a grid for what's important for handover to paramedic.
Could you
What about
share a
prioritising?
copy of that in the
I'll pop that over,
folder?
yeah.
And maybe you guys could use this as a bit of a template and modify it for
I'm thinking for the third year's triage, for the first year's, how to use one of the things like SOAP as a documentation acronym, and then a handover. I said that for handover in the middle or something. I don't know. There's lots of things that we. What do you guys use?
What are we using at the moment?
ISBAR.
Yeah, we sometimes.
ISBAR, I understand though, depends.
Is it
It depends.
ISBAR?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or ISO BAR is another one. Or ISA BAR. There's a lot of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I'm teaching the first year's SOAP, and then they move on because it's easier. Subjective, objective. Can't remember the rest.
Analysis and planning.
Yeah, analysis and planning, and then when they get to second year, they start on more
Oh.
complex ones. So we
No.
Hello.
I'm just pressing. Ignore me.